that last bit.
Microsoft says it's 6:30.
Okay.
Not hot to boil and all.
Okay. Microsoft and Apple agree. It being 6:30, we will open this meeting of the select board on February 25th, 2024. Happy birthday.
Today's February 5th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. My birthday's in October.
Okay.
You got an early start. Thank you.
Sometimes face.
You know how government runs.
The roll call of the select board.
Oh, fine, now you can do
Yeah, this is Jay.
Yes.
it. Yes.
Kathy. Anne says yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all five of us. That's nice. We will now take public comments on non-agenda items. Okay, don't see any hands in the room. No hands. The chairman's report will come out during the course of the meeting. It's mostly about the school budget. Just and then we look at the action items. And does anyone have anything to add or change in the action items? I would like to suggest that on our parking discussion at our next meeting, we adopt a list of streets that are resident only.
And I don't know if you want to add this or not, but the wayfinding task force met, and I don't know if we want this on there. I can just update as we go.
Do you want to report that as part of your liaison activities?
Yes,
Can it be a regular liaison?
absolutely.
And then you
Yes.
don't have to reduce the print on this anymore.
Mhm.
Any other recommendations?
It's complete for now.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is to interview Crystal Kandakis for the Cultural Council. You have your application, and here from you.
I was just looking for a way to get more involved in the town. I work at the library part-time, so I have a little bit of extra time that I can use to volunteer, and the cultural council is like the obvious place for me as an artist. I have attended some meetings, and I agree with a lot of what they're trying to do, and I think that there's even more that I could bring to the table. So,
Becky.
Just a question about time and having sufficient time to be involved. You've attended some meetings, so you, I guess, have an idea of what the time requirements might be.
I think so, yes. So I am able to attend most of the meetings. And what I'm offering is specialization with social media and posting, things like that. So part of that I just do on my own time.
Yep.
When I'm free. So that seems like it would work well moving forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for stepping out.
Right.
No, I've got nothing other than thank you again for stepping up.
Same, you answered the question I was going to ask, which is there a particular focus area? So you've already answered, and thank you very much.
I can only add that it's always gratifying when someone steps up and has skills that are appropriate for for the board that they're looking for. Thank you very much.
You're the first published poet I've ever spoken to. So that's great, and I'm glad that's a skill set that fits in with this particular board very well. You mentioned social media, because of your writing skills. Is there some thought in your mind that maybe there's some sort of a program that you might leverage into the cultural council's programming activities?
I think first, I'd really like to focus on getting the council up to speed in terms of social media
Fine,
and things like that, but I could definitely offer something like that, or bring in someone to
Yeah.
offer those kinds of services to the community.
it seems like you're uniquely qualified, and have the right connections to maybe do something in that area as well, but no question, social media is also pretty important in terms of connecting. So great. Well, thanks for raising your hand.
Is there anyone else who has a comment they'd like to add? Are we ready to vote?
Yeah, I'll move that the select board appoint Crystal Kandakis to the cultural council for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Meeting ready to vote? Becky?
Yes,
Brian?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes,
I say yes.
John says yes.
Congratulations, I guess.
thank you.
yes, thank you.
Okay, the next item is the, quarterly reviews of the police chief, the fire chief, and the town administrator in that order. Greg, do you have anything you want to say as an introduction to this?
Well, so you have the report from Chief Fitzgerald. I agree with a lot of what he has outlined there. I think things continue to progress well in the department, thanks to the chief's leadership. And I think we're on good footing. The chief continues to pursue emergency preparedness, not only against training for himself, but also working with the town, but also the broader regional community as well, which I think is a particularly helpful activity for us. So looking ahead, that work will continue. We've been working on the new union contract. We hope to finish that up in the next month or so. And we'll have more details on that for you, hopefully at your next meeting. As we gear up for summer, looking at parking enforcement and strategies for that are on the agenda as well. But turn it over to the chief to elaborate some.
No, I mean, Greg hit all the highlights. The only other thing that I just want to mention is we're working with regional dispatch to finally convert our data. We went through all that the other day and come up with a sort of a strategic plan on how that's going to look. New mobile data terminals should be here soon for all the vehicles, compliments of regional dispatch and state 911. As Greg said, I'm working on the state's MEMA's Emergency Management Advisory Board, which is basically, I think about 15 emergency managers from across the state. And our last meeting was the topic of the EMPG grants, which is emergency preparedness grants, and how they are going to try and restructure that. So there'll be more to follow on that as we move forward. And then the Regional Shelter Project, I invite you guys down if you want to come on March 16th for the drill, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Should only take a few hours. We're working with the MRC, the Medical Reserve Corps, and Board of Health to set up and break down the local shelter. We're also in the process of working on a regional shelter plan. We've identified Gordon College as possibly a regional location. We have about 8 communities, I think, 8 or 9 communities that are interested in participating with this, and there'll be more to follow on that as well. The next step is to have the Red Cross come in and view the facility at Gordon College to determine if its actual size and.
Where will you be on March 11th?
That's what?
Where will you be on March 11th?
The high school, March 16th.
16th.
At 11.
Right.
I don't know. And, let's see, other than that, the only other big hot ticket item for the department is our accreditation, our reaccreditation is this year. And, we're looking at a July date for our mock accreditation, where they come in and assess and see where we are. And then an actual accreditation for September, timeframe with the, award sometime around the first. And, the only other things I have is where we have driver simulator training through Maya that's coming in April, for police, fire, and DPW. Lieutenant McCoy is attending a internal investigation class, dealing with internal investigations and the post commission. Sergeant Luke and Lieutenant McCoy and I will be attending an advanced incident command similar to what we had the other day, but it's for managers and executives sometime in April. So other than that, we're just continuing on the march through, and then the next big thing, I guess, with you guys is gonna be the parking. We'll be at your next meeting.
Who is developing the plan for the 4th of July?
We have a meeting coming up, March 5th. So it starts with us, and we have the fire department, DPW, Parks and Rec, and, involved in that. So that's starting all already.
Any other questions?
I have some.
Yes,
I was looking over, when you were talking about the, overtime. And I know the NEMLEC, that will help cover with 4th of July, but do they not help with regular overtime or can't? Okay, so that's not a possibility there.
It's just for special events or
Special events.
emergencies.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask about succession planning. Is that
Underway, Lieutenant McCoy is gonna be taking some advanced training. He's currently waitlisted now, and possibly it'll be the spring or fall of 2025. He would be the next in line, depending on how things go. I only have 2.5 years to go, so I'm hoping we could have the next few people ready to move up to, the ladder as we move forward.
No, I think everything I've seen speaks for itself. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Everything's going great. Great job. I especially, along the line of the succession planning, I especially like to see the delegation of responsibilities, because that's part of preparing them, right? So I think that's all great. I also wanted to commend you. I know we're going to talk about parking in a couple of weeks, but anytime you can use technology to do a job that no human actually wants to do, that they win.
Yeah.
So kudos. I know we always get a little pushback, from the community on technology, but these are jobs that
Yeah.
humans really don't want to do, and that is a very good use of that. I did have a question on the North Shore 911. I think we're coming up on a year soon.
Yes.
We transitioned roughly in the spring of last year, right?
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to see the metrics, right?
Mhm.
We were promised a lot of things. Everything seems to be going right, but I believe it's a board responsibility to review, our strategic supplier relationships, and that's certainly one. It did look to me like they may have changed their website.
I'm not sure, I haven't looked at it.
So it used to go out when I would, type in the
Yeah.
URL, it went out to a specific website for them. Now it's all buried under mass.gov,
Mhm.
best I could see. So I didn't see any metrics for like last year.
Mhm.
The last report that was published was in 2021.
Mhm.
So I would like to see the 2022 report. I'm sure they have it. And then when the 2023 one comes out in April, I think roughly,
Yeah.
maybe that's a good time for us to have some type of board review on, okay, here's what we said we were gonna do, how are we doing?
would you like that added to the
The actions,
The actions.
I would, that would be a great idea. And,
I'll see if I get that.
yeah, the 2022, they should have it,
That should be.
but, all right, that'd be great, thank
Better
you.
than the data would be a URL, I think.
Well, I mean, like I said, it looks like they may have been asked to standardize their website, which happens, and I didn't see the 2022 report published out there. So hopefully they can either do that or send it to us, that'd be great. And that was it, thank you.
John?
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. I'm really curious about how this parking thing works out. In reading your reports, a lot on emergency management, and I'm kind of pleased to see that. Actually, when it's quiet and you don't really
Yeah.
know the police force is there, that's a good thing, but emergency management, that's when you gotta be front and center. So I'm glad to see that everything's getting trained on there. Question on NEMLEC. You're gonna request some resources for this year's 4th of July celebration. Well, frankly, it's 4th of July everywhere. So, I'm just wondering how that works because you're not gonna be the only person in line.
Get the request in early.
Aha,
That's the plan.
okay,
So, on the 14th, they're having a membership meeting, and right after that, the onboarding process is gonna start. So as soon as they come in and they'll do an on-site visit here, and once they do that, I'll do the request.
okay, all right. So there's prioritization based upon first come, first served. All right, that's good. I was just looking at some of the budget numbers, and you're pretty much on budget for most of this stuff. I saw that expenses are running a little bit ahead. Is there some reason for that? Is that
Most
gonna,
of the hot ticket items are July 1. So the big expenses.
they were front loaded?
It's a little front loaded.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so it'll slow down as time goes on, or it has been, I guess.
Yeah.
So, well, great. No, I think you're doing, you and your force are doing a very commendable job here in town.
Becky?
I wanted to explain an acronym that John and I used. NEMLEC is short for Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. So if anybody's listening in,
Yes.
they can understand that if they can hear me through my lifesaver. But the other thing I did want to ask you, just you were talking about the March 16th.
Yep.
And that you'll also be looking for community members to be involved in that. Is that something that will be publicized prior to the March 16th, just to let-
Probably not, because I just want to see how we lay this out and how it's actually supposed to flow and work, and then after that, we will do that. Years ago, I think we had a CERT team, and
Jake's nodding.
yeah, and I'm not sure how that got disbanded or where that went, but I think it's a, I think Jake would agree, it's a huge, important thing for us to try and rebuild and move forward with.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, we're expanding on acronyms, CERT,
It's a community emergency management response team, yeah.
and who would be that team?
Anyone who wants to join, any member of the public.
Okay, so it would be run by,
It'd be volunteers, it'll be run by either Jake or I or both of us, and then there would be volunteers that would get the training
Mhm.
to help us out in an emergency situation.
So would, as part of the forming those teams, I presume there might be some published criteria as to what makes a good CERT.
Yeah, I mean,
member.
MEMA puts on the training, and it's I think I put it in here, what they have to do, but it's basically some search and rescue stuff, some emergency medical stuff, and they could volunteer to help out running the shelter as well.
I guess my question would be, we do have a fair number of snowbirds in town, so would you be looking for people who might be more full-time residents, or would you also welcome part-time residents? Because
At this point, yeah, anyone that's willing to help.
any other comments or questions? Greg?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
It's the
Chief.
kind of report we like to get.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up.
Is that the hot seat? No.
That is the hot seat.
Nothing.
Why don't you give us a quick summary of
Sure. We've been busy, both call volume wise, onboarding the call firefighters. Everything's going extremely well. Actually, today was a prime example at like 4 o'clock. Our engine went over to Ipswich where they had a second alarm fire and they probably didn't even leave town and we had a medical. So I brought the ambulance up to a medical, an off-duty firefighter met me there. We went to the hospital, we came back. We had 2 call firefighters and another off-duty firefighter who came back. So the system is working. So hopefully that will be consistent and we can maintain it, but you know, that's good to see. It's been a process onboarding everybody. All the guys have done a wonderful job. Career guys helping the call guys and vice versa. One of our career firefighters, Shane Stevenson, graduated paramedic school, which is a huge feat. And he just got credentialed by Dr. Crendel recently. And then one of our call firefighters, who's also a paramedic, was credentialed. He's been a paramedic for 20 years, so it was more of a paperwork thing, but he was also credentialed. So we added 2 paramedics to our roster as of the last 2 or 3 weeks. Other staffing updates, our last probationary full-time firefighter will be graduating the academy on February 26th. That'll bring us up to full complement. We had 2 firefighters that are out for paternity leave over December and a little bit of January. That's why you'll see a little bit of an uptick in the shift coverage on the overtime, because we had 1 at the academy and then 2 out for paternity leave. Lieutenant Happel got his fire prevention officer 2, and then firefighter Susie got his incident safety officer, which are multi-session programs, and they have to take a certification exam at the end. So that was good to see. Our software is working. We're still working on a few kinks, but all the modules are up, operational. The last part of it is community involvement, which you might have seen in the Tide this week, and there'll be some other conversations coming out. We just didn't want to confuse people with the reverse 911, where we're giving information to the community. This program, Community Connect, is actually where the community gives information to us about their house, emergency contacts, pets, maybe medical needs, and it shows up on our iPads the minute the address gets dispatched from regional. So that will be pushed out. Hopefully, we might even be adding a mailer to the tax bill or water bill, et cetera, somewhere. Town clerk on that. Other than that, I've been working very closely with Chief Fitzgerald. We've been working, I can't say enough about working with the schools for preparedness. From other places I've worked, we are light years ahead, both working with Essex Police, Essex DPW, Manchester DPW on a regular basis. You know, God forbid there is an event. We're getting ready during April vacation. We're going to run a large drill at the school with all the police, fire, DPWs, just to do kind of a mock exercise. Other than that, and then obviously March drill, we're doing the shovel. That's about it. Questions?
Becky.
What is acting out of grade?
So acting out of grade, if a lieutenant's on vacation, we will bring up a firefighter and they act as a lieutenant. So instead of hiring a lieutenant on overtime, next senior person, or if somebody's on a list, promotional list, they move up. We call it move it up in the seat. So.
Thank you. And I did notice that your the overtime was well below the 3-year average. And I think we are so fortunate to have you here as part of our town. Thank you very much, Chief.
I've got no questions, just want to restate what Becky said. This is not last year's fire department. And I commend you and your team. I think that the face of a community in a lot of cases is public safety.
Yep.
And this town has nothing to be embarrassed about. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Same, yeah, it's like night and day. So this is great. I'm really, I especially appreciate the effort put into the call firefighting program, and I'm glad to see it's having some success we're off to a good start.
Right, I'm hoping
That's
that,
awesome.
you know, as long as the budget stays as where is currently for next year, to try to get 4 more.
I was gonna ask, are you?
I
still
think 8 would be a
trying
good complement if we can
Okay.
get them. I think after that, then you get to a costs kind of ratio. But if I think we can get 4 more like the 4 we currently have, I think that'd put us in an excellent
awesome.
position.
That's fantastic. And I also wanted to thank you for the social media postings. I think they've been very successful in communicating to everybody what you do when you're not out on a call, right? You know, you're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs, right? You know, you're actively preparing and making sure the equipment's well taken care of, training, all of that stuff. I love seeing that. So thank you very much. Great.
When you call in someone to fill a slot, are you filling 4-person shifts or 3-person shifts?
So we only fill 3-person shifts currently. So contractually, we have to have 3 firefighters on a shift. Looking forward, one of the things that during our interviews with the call firefighters that was kind of brought up is having them a little bit more involved. So we've been looking at trying to, it'll be easier with the new software once we get some data in there to see where our peak times are. If I was to guess, it would be Memorial Day to Labor Day on the weekends, just because obvious reasons, is maybe bringing extra help during those days. And again, we got to look at, you know, where we are financially, and then also get some data to back that up and not just my guess. So.
And thank you again for putting my Dutch stock out. I notice I'm one of the little hot spots.
I did see that.
Speed pass.
What it was.
Yep. John?
Yeah, that's good. Chief, I think you've got a well-oiled machine that you've put together here in really fairly short order.
Well, I mean, the guys are awesome. The staff we have is second to none. I think that, you know, it's them we should be thanking, not me. They do an excellent job, day in and day out, so.
Couple of questions on the call firefighters. So how many times so far have you had to call in the firefighter? And I'm not sure how long they've been active. What,
So
a month?
they've been kind of cleared to come back probably 2 weeks, middle of January, when they got and they're still getting up on the driver and driving and things like
Okay,
that.
have you had any incidents where I'm calling for somebody and there's nobody available yet? Is this, you happen to feel that 8 is the critical mass, that will never happen?
I wouldn't say that. The probabilities would be on our favor that it wouldn't happen. You know, we're still rolling the dice a little bit. You know, holidays, you know, weekend summers when people go on vacation, things like that. Those are the times I worry about because they don't have to stay around there.
No,
It's only when they're available. So those, and then 2 of them are full-time firefighters elsewhere, but thankfully they work opposite each other.
Oh,
So they're
One
not
or the
both gone at the same time. So that's also beneficial. I didn't design it that way. That was just fluke, but we'll take it.
So looking in the roster monthly report, what events are a call firefighter going to be called in for?
So anytime we have simultaneous calls, which happens.
That's down here.
Yep. If it's an all-tone, so regional dispatch, so an all-tone is a list of basically 6 categories, and it's the same for all the communities within the regional dispatch system, so there's some consistency. So any report of active flame or fire, natural gas leak, which we had a propane tank struck a few weeks ago, multiple medicals, or if the ambulance transports, we bring somebody back, so we still have 2 people available, just like today, to handle 2 calls at the same time. And then motor vehicle accidents that are significant on the highway, and then we call them high-risk occupancies, to lump them into one, commercial occupancies or schools, anything that, you know, has a large population within it, when the fire alarm goes
Right.
off. Or average residential burnt food just gets the on-duty staff, whereas if a school fire alarm comes in, that would be, everybody comes back.
Okay, so if I look down this list of, you've got about, what, 10 activities down here, about half of them, 4 of them That's what, I mean, at the fire administration, they're not involved with so
Nope.
much, or academy, none of that.
So incident station response would be
Right.
one, storm coverage would be another.
Yes,
Training, and then, if the, all tone, and then ambulance coverage.
Okay. just needed to know, those are the times where
Yep.
putting out the call.
Yep.
Okay,
Just other things to mention, we're moving forward with a few different grants. Chief Fitzgerald allowed us. Someone quiet? No, that was me. Chief Fitzgerald, is nice enough to allow us to apply for the EMPG grant this year that he was talking about that they're revamping. This year, we just got notified this afternoon that we were awarded it, so that will give us two different, it's $2,700, but it allows two different devices for fighting vehicle fires, more specifically electric vehicle fires. One's a blanket, and then one's a special nozzle that goes under the car to cool the batteries. They can burn up to 24 or 36 hours, so allows those to be done. And then we're looking at some equipment grants and some other grants.
Are you looking at safer grants?
We are, yeah, those haven't come out yet. The Assistance of Firefighter Grant has come out. So our Scott Air Packs are the number one thing we really need, otherwise we're definitely gonna have to fund those next year. We're gonna shoot for the moon and try to get a fire truck out of it as well. That's like hitting the Powerball and making those at the same night. So we're gonna try that, and then the other one was a combined training grant with Essex. So together, when we got a high likelihood of getting that, we're gonna come up, so we train together and set some standards between both towns. So we'll train cohesively.
Do you work with the Essex Fire Chief?
All the time. I talk to him probably 4 or 5 times a week.
What kind of issues do you
For,
call them up and say, how's it going, or?
oh, yeah, so we look at, you know, what type of issues they're having. If they have a broken piece of equipment, we have a broken piece of equipment. We do automatic aid now, so anytime they have a report of smoke in the building, we automatically go. Same thing, them coming to us. And then we try to combine our trainings as much as possible. Since we're doing that automatic aid, it's really important for the left hand to know what the right hand's doing. So trying to integrate that a little bit more.
Anyone have anything else?
Comment on the flooding.
Yes. So the Saturday was, it was a Saturday, right? It was a big one. Saturday was definitely worse than the Wednesday or Thursday. So it crested, if you've been in our basement garage, there's a step up and then it goes into the boiler room. So it crested that step, which that was a first. But the boilers are also up a little bit, so it did not get to the boilers. But it was, we didn't lose anything. And we have all of our sandbags all lined up and ready to go, but it's definitely problematic. And some of the calls we went to, obviously, that was a busy time for us calling. So.
This one is for Greg. Where is the HVAC for the fire department in the list of things to consider? I think we've talked about, that boiler is old, it's running on fuel oil. And we're moving
Yeah, I'm
toward.
trying to remember, we did talk about a Green Communities grant to replace it, but it didn't.
So if I remember correctly, they were looking at a heat pump, but
Yes.
because of where the building is and geography and things like that, it wasn't going to hit whatever numbers it needs to hit.
Score high enough.
Yeah, score high enough to land those.
Is it possible to raise the existing boiler?
Probably, I mean, yes, I'm not sure how.
Everything's possible.
Everything is possible, yes.
A lot of replumbing, but yeah.
Yes.
And then the ladder truck, just give an update.
Yep, so ladder truck is nearing completion. We go out, the company brings us out in the second week in March to look at it and to do a final walkthrough of the truck, make sure it meets the specifications. It was a demo truck, so we were able to change some things. Other things were already in production, so we weren't able to change. They've been working with us very closely. And we should have it, well, we will have it by July 1 by contract. So even though it got pushed out It was supposed to be completed by now.
Be in the parade.
Great. I don't know if it'll be outfitted by then, but,
Side meeting of the bill, that's all we really care about.
Yeah. Some works you said.
yeah, yeah. So we should have it, July, my hope is middle of July will be in service and, operation. So it makes its way from Minnesota this way, demo, which is actually good, because if there's any issues, they can work it out before it gets here, so we don't have to deal with it. We should have a, loaner truck, either PVD's third ladder truck, shortly, or, Essex's old one, when their new one's already in. So we can get their old one in the meantime. So we should have coverage, my guess is March first week or two of March, we should have coverage.
Check the emissions on the Essex driver.
No comment.
Essex does- See, the problem is Essex doesn't care.
Any other?
No, I know that Kathy is probably wants to say this, and I'll say it for her. Nice job with all the graphs.
That's the new software. It does allow us to track.
A businessman, he gets it.
Everyone's like, why do you track the percentage of year past versus to the 2 decimal points? There's a reason for that, because if there's a problem, you identify it a little sooner than.
Right.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is the town administrator,
Okay.
and I would like you to give us an overview for a minute.
So, yeah, the last quarter, putting together the preliminary budget was certainly front and center. Working with all the department heads and Debbie and others to pull all the numbers together, so that has gone smoothly. Obviously, the special town meeting in the fall was an effort that went well. We obviously had the problem with the clickers, but otherwise it went very smoothly. A team has worked very diligently to make sure that we've understood what happened and proceeding well with solutions going forward with those. Obviously, real estate conversations were front and center, both the community center and the Masons. One is going successfully, the other one has taken a turn and is sort of out of our hands at this point. So wasn't for a lack of effort. There was some things go different ways than you want them to. Some hiring, we have the new town planner on board, Mark Resnick, started up a few weeks ago. And we also hired a new conservation agent with a new shared arrangement with Hamilton. Still working on a few kinks with that in terms of scheduling and trying to make sure that there's enough time in the day to do both communities. So a little bit of a work in progress, but hopefully we will get there. The governance committee has, as you know, done quite a bit of work. We'll give another report later on this evening on that. Have held 2 all boards meetings and have worked at identifying ways to hopefully streamline and better coordinate the efforts of the various boards and committees in conjunction with departments. So again, I think a worthwhile effort that has fit in well with some of your goals. Obviously, looking ahead, preparations for the annual town meeting will be front and center. Finalizing the proposed budget, working with finance committee on a weekly basis, and getting your input as well will be important. And seeing what the special articles will be needed. A little early to tell at this point. I do not foresee MBTA zoning on the annual. I think that will wait until the fall for a special town meeting, just in terms of the timing. And has to be vetted by both the planning board and then it has to be vetted by the state.
The state needs 90 days and there aren't 90 days.
Correct. Hopefully they won't take all 90, but you have to plan on it. So, in terms of transition or succession planning for my position, again, we have a couple of staff members who remain very interested and are attending different trainings that we are identifying together. So I think that's off to a good start. And we should talk some more, a little bit about timing, and I can save that for another meeting if you like to have a focused discussion on what the timeline will look like. But we should be anticipating doing recruiting probably next fall at the latest. So something to think about, and we'll have a more in-depth conversation about that going forward. So I think that's enough summary for now. Happy to answer questions or delve into any of the items in a little more detail.
Yeah, no, Greg, I have the greatest admiration for all the balls that you juggle.
Thank you.
And I think staffing was perhaps a little bit more active this quarter than some of the others. So you had to fill a couple of blanks. Question on your succession planning. You've never retired before.
This is true.
And have you ever had in your previous positions had to lay out a succession plan for somebody who was going to replace you, or did you simply resign, I'm going someplace else, and it was their problem? In other words, are you doing this for the first time to say, okay, this is how we're going to find out?
In terms of this is a more concerted effort on succession planning, just because there's more time. The other two transitions that I went through, I was both times I stayed on in terms of sort of a consulting capacity.
Yes.
You know, that's up to you to decide, and the new person coming on, how much you want that. But in both cases, I did about a 6-month part-time, available for consultation.
I mean, all of us know the complexities you deal with. And you can't just say, here, I'm going to leave in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. It's just an awful
Right.
lot going on.
Right, we do have the luxury of having more time this time.
Yes.
So both my other transitions, probably a couple of months notice.
All right, okay.
So.
And all of these,
Having, a year and a half gives us more time to think through that, but yes.
okay. And so the trainings that you're suggesting or doing are perhaps appropriate for the individuals that have expressed an interest.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and my other two transitions, that was not the case. There were not in-house candidates.
Yeah.
So that was a recruiting effort that brought someone from the outside.
Yeah, just along that line, the succession planning, I'm glad that some internal candidates have expressed some interest, so that's always good. Succession planning, though, however, is, and I've talked to Chief Fitzgerald about this as well, you're preparing candidates to compete for the position,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
There's no promise of
Correct.
being hired, because we don't even know who's gonna be on the board. Right, so we don't know who's gonna be here. All we can do, and it's just very important to message that in these conversations, you're giving them the best possible chance to compete. Regarding the training, I think that's great. However, what's even more helpful is letting them do some of your job now. So when we were talking with Chief Fitzgerald, it was very visible the ways that he is doing that with some of the people on his succession plan. Whatever it is that you might be doing in that regard, it's just not as visible. I think the board should start to see you delegate certain things, even small things, to people who are interested in being, having your job. So, because part of, what people don't always understand is what made them successful in their current role is not going to make them successful in your role, right? It's a different role. So they need the practice of, doing pieces of your job that gives them the best possible chance to compete. So I would just really encourage you to do that. And
Yeah,
I,
for example, that's not perhaps visible, it's, having them sitting on some, union negotiations.
exactly,
So they've been
Yep.
doing that,
that's great, that's
Mhm.
great.
but that's not a very visible.
Right,
Um,
but it's
activity.
good. So I'm glad you mentioned though, that you're doing that. That's great.
We can continue to think of those opportunities.
Yes, and even one of the things I value personally most about you is your ability to communicate. You're very succinct, you're very crisp, you get to the point. That takes practice. And I really, whoever is on your succession plan or has an interest in your position, I would personally like to see them communicate to the community on something. Do your weekly letter in the Cricket, take a turn, whatever. You are just such an outstanding communicator that whoever comes after you has really big shoes to fill in that regard and may need as much practice as possible. You just do a great job there. I also wanted to commend you on your hiring. Sometimes when we talk about there being an open position, we all get a little nervous. Oh, who's gonna want to take the job? We've got to stop that because you hire great people. Okay, this is a wonderful town, it's a wonderful community, and people actually like being here. So, the next time we have an opening, let's open that position with courage and optimism that we're gonna find a great candidate, because that's what you've been doing, as far as I can see. So, thank you.
I got nothing.
Becky?
I'm going to echo what John said. We are fortunate and I've had the pleasure of being on a number of involved in town while you're with you at the head, Greg, and it's pretty remarkable. I just, I can't say that enough, and thank you.
I didn't say it, but I meant it.
You did. Try it again.
I tell them in private.
Okay. So that nobody notices.
Right.
So that we think you're not doing anything.
Exactly.
There you go. Ian's got you pegged.
You hire very good people. Not 100%.
Not 100%.
Nobody gets 100%. But many of the people you hired have just made a huge difference to the town. I used to hear gossip about this person is stealing and that person is not, doesn't show up. And that,
But I'm glad to hear you say that.
so kudos on that, absolutely, and whoever replaces you is going to start way ahead of where you started. Thank you. Any?
Greg, do you have any comment? No, just kidding.
Do you have any questions for yourself?
Well, I mean, thank you for the support. We have some big challenges. They loom large. I do worry about those challenges. It's getting harder to govern.
Yeah.
I think you all have experienced that. And I think we need to keep working that. I think part of the governance project can help with that in terms of communications and trying to always encourage opinions to be expressed, but in a way that we can all hear.
Right.
And I think the town does a good job that way. There are obviously times when that doesn't happen, but I think the majority of times it does, and that speaks well to the community and all of you, but it takes work to keep at it. So I do worry about that long term. And I think we have a real challenge ahead of us with the school budget.
Mhm.
And the division we're seeing with Essex. There's a very different philosophy and it's going to be hard to meld the two. And I think that's going to take some real concerted effort on everybody's part. People care a lot about the schools, and it's a very passionate topic. And it means a lot to people. So I don't think we can underestimate the importance of that. So I just encourage us to, in the next 2 months, really put some real energy into trying to foster some dialogue that promotes some solutions.
I know they're having, within the town itself, some very polarized perspectives. Which hopefully we can help.
Keep being open and holding forums and having conversations, and that's the best way to make sure we're gonna have a fighting chance of coming up with good solutions.
We have 10 minutes. I'd like to take up the consent agenda, and I'd like to remove the meeting minutes for January 2nd for correction, which I just got to. Find it because I thought you did. On the third page of the minutes for January 2nd, under liaison updates, I was obviously not clear. It is the school committee that doesn't want, that insists on open meetings, not the town of Essex. The town of Essex insists on closed meetings. The town of Manchester is willing to go anywhere, anytime.
I'll make that correction.
Thank you. With the exception of that, I think perhaps, do we want to talk at all about the early beach tag fee and process?
I would like to pull out the special events permits. I had a couple questions on some of those.
Any,
The beach tags?
yes,
Yes, there's an increased fee. I haven't got it in
$20
front
to
of me.
$25.
$25 for the early tags. Now, that was because of charging, et cetera. Now, what about the regular season tags? Are they gonna go up $5?
So those are sold at the beach for cash.
Okay,
So there's not a.
oh, just
profit.
cash, straight cash. They're not gonna do anything with cards. Okay.
Again, we struggle with
No, yeah, well,
readers out there,
don't wanna do that.
good service.
Okay, all right. So it's just the early ones because it's a charge card.
How do
In the
they, I'm sorry, how do they actually, when they're at Singing Beach, collect the fees? Is it cash?
Yeah.
How are they? And how do we keep track of, is it just, you've got so many tags that get sold?
They're numbered sequentially. So they know how many they have sold in a day, and that needs to match the cash receipts for that.
And that's less of a concern and more, is there any concern about the people who are down there having a lot of cash on hand?
So they will go around to the bank in the middle of the day if it's an extra busy day.
Okay.
So, I mean, to answer your question, yes, there's some concern about it. So,
If that were to be a known
Right.
situation that
Now everyone knows.
now
Yeah.
everyone
Thank you.
knows. Exactly.
So if someone comes in and wants to buy a beach tag here, of course, it's out of the clerk's hands because it's now in Parks and Rec. They can't do that. They would be instructed, hey, when you want to go to the beach, you're gonna buy it there.
after the.
Yes, after the
certain
time.
date, yeah.
That's right.
So between April 30th and May 25th, you can't get a beach tag.
I don't know if I'm gonna say can, because I'm sure Cheryl would sell it if someone came to her office.
And what would you sell it for?
Yeah.
That's your question.
Well, that's part of my question. Where would an interim beach tag cost?
That's a good question.
That would be the 35,
Okay,
after that cutoff date, yeah.
okay,
It'd be the 35.
But it would be cash.
no,
Not at the, yeah.
Because you're charging for plastic, but if you're not gonna use plastic.
Right.
After that point, so that extra charge is only when you're using plastic and it's only for that window and that's it. Otherwise, it's cash, one way or the other.
I kind of anticipate that we're going to hear from people about raising the cost from 20 to 25.
Costs have been low for so long, though. I mean, I think that when we talk about having, wanting to pay for the service,
It's 20 for the entire season and it does not affect our, people over a certain age and children under a certain age. I mean, it's a specific
Mhm.
age group, typically working folks, right?
When we initiated this, there was a lot of pushback.
When the fee first became.
Yeah, when it was separated
From
from,
the
from the
car.
tag, from the car.
Yeah.
And perhaps we ought to consider raising the regular fee. If we're gonna raise, I understand that there isn't any economic justification for it. But it might make people feel less combative.
Right, what you're saying, why punish the people who are buying it earlier and making our
Yeah,
life easier, right? If you're gonna raise the fee, raise it for everybody, and that would be fair.
My concern is that we've seen 2 increases in the last 3 years.
Hmm.
Okay, I mean, in significant increases. And I think that's what I'm looking at. That's my fear. People are gonna push back on that.
So didn't we have to pay higher labor rates for the lifeguards and,
Yes, we do.
I mean, to me, that's the justification, that there's a
Right.
real staffing concern. And we're trying to make that beach self-sufficient, right, as much as possible.
Yeah.
You
So
gotta
the
pay them
quest-
more.
The question would come down, do taxpayers want to underwrite other people's use of the beach? Or is it a pay for itself?
Yep.
And I just, again, I think that we've had fees kept low for
No,
a
I
very
agree.
long time. And not that anybody wants to pay more, but I just,
I think we just have to be prepared to justify the pricing.
yeah, but $5 for the credit card fee, which is what, 2%?
three,
Three.
it depends on what
Yeah.
you're using. Amex is more, they all,
So it's the charge and the mailing of the tags. That's the hard cost that we.
Okay, so 60 cents plus.
And the pins cost money too, oddly. Everyone forgets about the pins.
So if I recall, I mean, Gloucester, for a season pass there was, it's more than $20, I would think, right? For their-
is what Kathy,
Gloucester, I was wondering, I think, to your point, I think our fee for the entire season
yeah,
is quite low in
Yeah.
comparison to our neighbors. Even if you raise it to 25 in advance and 35, I think,
Oh, yeah, no, we're still below.
we're
mhm.
still below everybody else.
And the only way this can really be done is, I guess, on the web. The advanced ones. If they were to show up in that window, I mean, Cheryl's not sitting in there with a,
She has
Well,
somebody that
prefer
2
not
days a
to.
week that
Okay.
she will advertise 2 days a week that it would be available in person.
Mhm.
But would try to encourage people to do the online.
right,
I do think we had on our action item list, the review of the resident parking stickers / use of the beach for October discussion.
Right.
So I believe we decided to do that because we wanted to go through another season with the way it is. Are we clear on what data we are going to collect before we begin the season? Are we clear on what data we are going to collect so that when we have the conversation in October, we know what we're looking at?
But, yeah, I'll Cheryl prepare a template and have you review that.
Okay, can
But,
can we
yeah,
just make
you-
sure
You took
that,
those notes from the last time we had this discussion.
Mhm.
yeah,
I'm not recalling all of the details of that, but I know that we took some notes.
I think it would be helpful since we're gonna be talking about parking our next meeting. Could we just have her do that?
Sure.
and Get it to us in our package for that next meeting. That way we're all up to speed on everything. Cause I honestly don't remember all the details and I would appreciate that content for next week, next meeting's discussion.
It would be good for Tiffany to get out. I think the consensus here is that $25 for prepay and $35 after April 30th is something we can live with. So perhaps Tiffany should get the dates and the amounts out. So that we
The news.
minimize the number of people who show up on May 1st and say, oh, I've just cost myself $10.
Probably 20.
Do you want a motion for that?
Yes,
I move that the select board approve the early beach tag fee of $25 and the fee after the early of 35.
Second.
okay, John,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay. Could we, with the change, the stuff that we've talked about, could we approve the consent agenda for the meeting minutes, the resignation of Sheila Linehan and Tom Durkin? And hold the approval of the special events.
I have one addition or correction, I think, on the
Yep.
11th. I think I was here in person. Okay, so I think it was a copy paste, I think, from the previous. I was not here on the
That
second.
was a copy
Yeah.
paste.
Ah.
Good catch.
motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda, including the amendments to the January 2nd and January 11th minutes, but not to include special events.
Second,
Okay,
take it, please.
Becky,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anne says yes.
John says yes.
Okay, now we are at after 7:30. And we take up the NOAA grant administration of vendor. Right?
I'll turn it over to Becky and Kathy for that one.
Okay.
Did everybody have a chance to read through the information sent regarding the NOAA grant? And the interview criteria we used? Does anybody have any questions? We, after interviewing, both respondents, MAPC and Town Green, it was unanimous that we felt that the Town Green would be addressing our local needs, in a way that would support us, in a better way. Both were very good and had, a lot of strength. But we felt more confident with Town Green.
Yeah, I would only add that, Town Green is also a sub-awardee on the grant.
Mhm.
So they have, if we agree to let them administer it, they have two distinct roles. Part of that, though, meant that they were very well versed in the grant and the players. MAPC certainly could do the job. I think we felt their response was a bit generic. The Town Green folks really had a solid command of what that grant was supposed to do. What each of the players was supposed to do, they were just very knowledgeable in a different way. The MAPC had a very interesting background, though, in emergency preparedness. They seemed to respond to the grant with a very strong emergency preparedness focus. And when we looked at the sub-awardees and what they're supposed to be working on, that would have been a nice skill set to have, but there seemed to be, like I said, a little bit different focus with the grant. We also did have just one question, Greg, because of the nature of all of those sub-awardees. Town Green was under the impression, and Becky, correct me if I get this wrong, Harvard has a big piece of this grant, okay? Town Green, as an administrator, I don't think they felt that they were gonna be managing Harvard's work so much as the steering committee would be.
Correct.
Okay, so that is how,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
So they were really focused on the sub-awardees, the
Yeah.
local folks. And that was one of the reasons, I think, why we also picked them, because whoever's on the steering committee is gonna be managing Harvard and.
Yes. That's true. And just a side
Yeah.
note, so they are intimately involved with the grants we have for emergency management.
Okay.
That same
okay,
team.
Good, good, okay,
That same team is involved, working with Todd and Jake and with the shelters and all of that.
Good.
So we did receive some grant monies for that, and they've been helping with that intimately.
I do think they admitted, though, that this particular grant was, the whole grant was larger than something they historically, the particular project manager, something she historically had managed, but since Harvard is not really under their purview, then it's more in line with the size of grants they're comfortable managing.
Anything further?
No, I think I agree with the conclusions that Becky and Kathy made. Town Green, local, they certainly knew the region, I think, better than the MAPC, because they're here. And they had more experience with climate. MAPC administratively, frankly, they were very strong. But there's a little bit more than just checking boxes on administration here. So Town Green really kind of knows exactly what's going on.
Is there anyone online? Excellent.
So again, just for the record, I am on the board of.
Yes.
How we
You know
do
this.
it. That's why I stepped back from this process
Understood.
and let the committee do their work.
John, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry, I'm not. Who's supposed to say what?
I move that the select board award a contract to Town Green to provide the administrative assistance to the NOAA grant.
Second,
Ready to vote? Becky,
yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes,
Anne says yes.
John says yes.
Okay. And again, we are a little ahead of schedule.
Want to do
Why
it?
don't we take up special event, permits?
Since I'm the one who has to
Yeah.
have it pulled out, there were a couple questions. One was regarding the Easter egg hunt. The only question about that is they'd listed Forty Harbors Point as the address. Do they still have that community center as the address there?
Don't believe so. I don't know what they're using for an official address.
And my,
Well, the eviction hasn't really happened yet, has it?
Was that,
The eviction is still
Is still-
is
still-
ongoing, so yeah. I
okay,
guess-
so maybe they, maybe
Okay,
so
that's their address. Fine, I just wanted to be, and it's great that they'll be doing the registering. I'll be fine. Then on the next one, the Cape Ann Kids Pan Mass Challenge. There were a couple of questions I had on that. I didn't see that we had the insurance, that we had received the insurance. That. I'm,
Yeah.
okay, and, because it also said that, they would be staying, it's listed as being at Masconomo, but some of the run, does that take place? Some of it's to Singing Beach and back, and then 3 mile, 5 mile, and 11. So do we need, does it need to be noted that it's more than Masconomo? In terms of police, presence on the roads? Just for safety?
Can I suggest that we send this one back and make sure that we get the insurance and
And police details.
because um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not,
it's not until May
okay.
to delays, not to hope to.
And then the other thing, the next one with the UCAN Sports. The dates, the event date is listed for September 17th, 2023. So it has the wrong
Yeah.
event date.
Yeah.
And it also ticked a number of boxes on the events details, but we don't have that extended information. And this too was talking about roads being, asking that roads be closed to traffic. And this is the downtown. That's Pine Street, Summer Street, Washington. So it's closing off a portion of the town. And what I'm wondering is, instead of closing, can we have it done in portions? I'm not sure about having all the roads closed at one time.
I think closing Central Street is awkward.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. But
we can give details on it.
I mean, I'm
This is
looking at this
happening.
application. It looks like it was last year's application.
well,
It's also signed with last year's date.
I was gonna say the date's wrong on the application as well.
Yeah,
That's not me yet.
no, you're the next
I'm
one.
at the street, I know,
I
and
know.
I'm hearing all of what you're saying.
you're coming up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I think that one, since seems to be in September, we can kick that one back for, more dates. I mean, the correct dates. If they've filled in a box for the details, please provide us with that information. But also, I think we need to, I don't know about closing the downtown for, what do they say, 9 to noon?
Yeah, so in the past, this has been run, I think, just during the critical time when the runners are going through, but.
Right.
Again, we can get more details from the chief how that's been handled.
Okay. Okay.
Can we
approve the application for the Easter egg hunt.
You want to go over
Okay, let's go over the last one.
the last event?
Yeah.
And I had some questions on this one as well.
Sure.
On this, it says setup times 1 hour, breakdown 1 hour. So typically what we're given is more specific time frames.
Okay,
Um,
so from 4 to 5 would be set up and from 7 to 8 would be breakdown.
okay, and it also, as far as needing police details and ambulance, that's something you need to work out.
Correct, yeah.
And has, if I may,
Of course.
have you been in touch with fire and police at this point?
So I wanted it to get past this stage. I talked with
okay.
Betsy, who did the Happy as a Clam race. I sat down with her and she gave me a 7-page thing of how to do this properly and put letters to neighbors and who to contact and make the town happy and make it fun.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just go through the process of that. I do have my letters already made up for the police and the fire department to send after this got approved today, hopefully. And then I would go from there with the fire and police. I also would ask the fire station to use their paramedic at that time if we could. I did reach out to alternative sources, and that would be something we'd have to budget with PTO, but
Yeah.
we're looking to bring this back, so.
I think it'd be nice to have it come back. I also have, concerns about closing those
Yeah.
streets all at one time, as well as needing the insurance.
Sure,
So we don't have that in here.
and the insurance is through the PTO, which is covered the insurance that we already have.
And we have to see that before
Okay.
we can approve it. Does anybody else have any questions on this one?
So that's 2 insurances we're missing then.
Well, just a process check, wouldn't we want the police and fire conversation to happen before we approve it?
I did go to the
Okay.
station
Okay.
and they said, you need to go do this, we're on board for whatever. If they say it's okay, we'll help you. I got the quote on how much their
Okay.
detailing would be, the minimum, the admin fee, all of that sort of stuff. So did have a ish conversation, but not
Okay.
full. Yeah.
Okay.
It's can be a little confusing. We definitely get that. And we just need to make sure all the,
Absolutely.
everything is,
You tell me what steps I need to do and I will get them done for you.
Are we clear on what steps?
So we need the insurance, and then do you want me to approach the police further, or with the insurance, would you feel comfortable enough to say, let's move forward with or what else do I need?
I think rather than closing all the streets at one time, if it's possible to do them sequentially, that might.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This is 5 to 8, is it? Or
This is a 5K, so this is only the 3.1, so it's really
Right.
known as the heater around here, or the parade, it's almost the parade route.
right,
So I feel like a lot of Manchester is going to be, just know the route at least. It is gonna be less than an hour is our time limit for this race to be done, but there will be children running it, and so
Right.
that's my only concern. Or if we could close half the street, depending on the participants. I know I've run the half here, and I don't remember the full streets being closed down when we got to town, but maybe half the street, I don't know if I remember.
I guess I have a couple of questions. I have, so this is a race that used to be run?
Yes, so it was
always
5
run
years
in the
ago.
evening?
Last time they did it was a Friday night.
So the reason I ask is because that seems like a really odd time, and if I owned a restaurant in downtown on a Friday evening, you're telling me people can't drive to my restaurant? I would be a little uncomfortable with that.
We could change the route too.
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
we have a hard enough time, helping our restaurants stay successful.
Yeah.
I would not be a fan of closing down any street with a restaurant on it. That's prime dining time.
My other concern was like if we went over the railroad track with the train.
I
So-
think that's a whole different, we
So-
don't have,
Yeah, so I can map something else out, maybe a couple different proposed routes if
Yeah,
that
I think that would be
easier.
helpful.
If
Okay.
you can look back at what happened before 2020.
They've done a route like this, they've done to Singing Beach and back, they've done several different things, but I mean, we can get creative. It's
Why
fine.
do I think, I remember that they used to be on Saturday mornings?
I was gonna say,
It was
yeah.
only one
Yeah.
time
Yes.
that they did the Friday night,
Oh, okay.
and they said that was the most successful that they raised money for the school, however, was it most successful for the town?
I remember this, I mean, it
And
wasn't
then
that
the
long ago. It
Correct.
was Saturday mornings.
Or unless it could be, even if you do a loop back or something.
Yeah, we
I'm
could-
sure you can come up with something and,
Many places to run.
yeah, I'm sorry that.
No, that's okay. It's still early, we're hoping sometime in May, so yeah, we have time to figure it out.
Okay, so, you want an approval of the Easter egg hunt?
Yes, please.
A motion to approve the, special event Easter egg hunt
Second.
for this. Okay.
John,
Yes.
Anne says yes.
I say yes.
Kathy says,
Yes.
Brian. Becky.
Yes.
So the state of the consent agenda is the meeting minutes have been corrected and
Thank you.
approved. The resignations have been approved or accepted with a nice letter going to each of them,
Yep.
thanking them for their
Mhm.
Um, and, the Easter egg hunt. And the beach tag. So, okay, it now is 5 minutes late and we can take up,
Town meeting.
ATM.
the ATM.
So you've set the date for Wednesday, April 24th. It's the annual town meeting date, which means that any such petition articles are due in by the 22nd of February, and for 60 days ahead of time. So that's, read about that in last week's paper. And we'll post that up on the website too.
Our policy is that the petition with all the signatures has to be in, but there's no requirement that the signatures be verified by the president.
We do that once they've been submitted. As long
But
as
if
they're
it's
submitted by that.
submitted by that date, it's, okay, because there was some
There was
question.
some question. Yes.
When you're putting it up on the website,
You can make that clear.
I think it has been clarified on the website somewhere, but in the same place that is.
So like I indicated, Finance Committee is making, meeting weekly and making good progress. There'll be some additional fine tuning, and there's been some fine tuning as we go forward. On the positive side, I think our health insurance number will come in a little lower than what we anticipated, so that helps. And there's some other changes, pluses and minuses. But we'll get a summary of those as we get a little closer to the end of the month. As I mentioned, the school budget is a big item. It will require some additional conversations. I've outlined some possibilities of some strategies going forward. We need to get into those in depth tonight, but at some point, I think it'd be helpful if we do. You wanting to dive in, that's fine as well. Just to give the summary, in addition to the actual school operating budget, we will also have two other fairly large asks for the school, and that is our final share of the turf field renovations. So originally, the thought was for the town to pay in cash our share of coach field.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
And,
Field.
and then to have the district borrow funds for Highland Field. So that Essex did not want to borrow, and so it takes the two towns to agree to the borrowing. So the district has not borrowed, so we need to pay the remainder for that field. And so it's roughly 300,000 more that we owe
For Highland.
for Highland.
And I thought we'd already approved. Are we paying more than,
So the original projection was us to pay 1.2 of the total of 1.6. And our total came in at 1.1
For both fields.
for both fields.
So,
So we owed half of Coach Field, and we owed 2/3 of Highland.
is that because it's a,
Is that quite correct? Because I think we.
No, wait a minute, I said that wrong. I
that's
said
the
that wrong.
opposite,
Yeah.
good field, right? Because that's town land.
We owed more, on the, we owed 100,
We owe,
we owed half of it is strictly ours. And then
Yes.
of the remaining half of Coach, we owed 2/3.
Right.
Of that remaining,
Because it's
so,
technically town land.
yes.
correct, and Park and Rec uses that field extensively. And so we owe, so that's how we owe more on Coach. And then at Highland, we owe the 2/3 based on the apportionment formula. So grand total, originally 1.2, it came in a little below budget, so 1.1. We've already allocated 800.
Okay.
Two $400,000 allocations, so we owe another 300. So that's one vote, special vote for the school that's needed. And
And
then
the
the other,
FinCom, they're okay with that? Because I'm reading here that they had originally wanted it to go from, drawing down on the stabilization fund for that, was that?
finance committee.
The school,
Yeah.
the school, go ahead.
So a few meetings ago, the finance committee said, again, fund balance, free cash and stabilization were higher than the 8%.
Right.
Why don't we prepay some of our OPEB?
Mhm.
So they, obligations, so they were suggesting to take 800 from stabilization and put it into OPEB.
But
They have not talked about these new numbers, and I think they will want to, my recommendation is that they revisit that OPEB funding, because this is a higher priority.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting this straight because the district's funding, of course, is completely independent of FinCom. So this has,
This was our stabilization money. Yeah.
right, this has nothing to do, this is the money that we as the town put into the fields, not the district portion, which is that other,
Think of it as what we owe grand total. We owe 1.1 million towards those fields.
right,
And we had paid 800,000.
yeah,
We originally thought we were going to borrow and pay over time 400 plus 300, the 700.
okay, it clicked in, thank you, just clicked. There we go.
So that's one piece, and then the other piece is assuming that both towns approve going forward with a feasibility study for the Essex Elementary School. We don't know the exact cost of that feasibility. We're estimating between $1 million and $1.5 million. So that's why you see that range of 440 to 660 would be our share of that. So the district would pay 1/3, and then the remaining 2/3, Manchester would pay 2/3 of that remaining 2/3.
we would pay 2/3 of the remaining 2/3. Okay.
I'm telling you, this is where a pie chart would
Oh
be.
Yes.
Yeah.
2/3 of
There's some
2/3.
good colors. That was good
Different
Four
colors.
nines.
Mhm.
4 nines,
Maybe an overlay.
There you go.
44%.
So those are, those are two big numbers. And that'll have an impact on obviously the stabilization and fund balance. Either way.
And stabilization takes a 2/3 vote of the,
It used to. They just changed that law.
Really?
And it only takes a majority vote now.
oh, that's good. Well,
So
that's easier.
that is a change. That they just last December.
Hmm.
That They did as part of the supplemental budget. So that is a change.
When will the school know? Will the school know what the feasibility study is going to cost before we have to, before April 24th?
They'll have a good sense of that, yes. Oh, yeah, definitely by April 24th. Yeah, she Pam hopes to get a pretty good sense of that in the next little bit here.
Were you going to go? You were. Were we going to talk about all 5 items, or can we just think about them until it comes up the next time?
Yeah, it's up to you, how much you want to dive into the.
When do we plan to have another discussion on the school budget?
When?
Yeah.
At this point, it's scheduled for the 22nd February. I don't know if that's gonna hold. Because that's school vacation week. I'm pretty sure Pam's away.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's gonna work.
Perhaps we should consider scheduling a band meeting. Because they haven't voted on the budget yet.
Right, don't do that next week.
They'll do that tomorrow.
I'm sorry. The 6th is tomorrow, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
So, I think I think finance committee will have to flip flop the 22nd agenda with the number of Wednesday of the following week is
okay,
28th. I think it is.
so perhaps,
So perhaps the school budget is a discussion on the 28th.
okay.
Do all 5 of these points involve the current school budget? Or some of them?
No,
I mean, I'm looking here and trying to put it into one pile or the other,
I would say,
and it seems like there are 2 piles here.
yeah, 1, 2, and 3 are not gonna happen for this budget.
I would agree.
Maybe 4 and 5.
All right.
So, number one is
No, that's long.
pushing out the bonds
Yes.
for the new school, doing anticipation notes to buy some time. Number 2 is conducting operational reviews. That's going to take some time. Number 3 is taking a look at the apportionment formula to see either if you increase the weight of the value of properties and or put some sort of guardrails as to how much of an increase either community might experience in 1 year. And then 4 is use of fund balances, both towns and district, to perhaps get over this struggle we have as a temporary basis. And then 5 is having Essex approve an overlay.
Both of those, we're just gonna be revisiting this all next year.
Yes,
4 and 5 just says, okay, we sold it for a few months.
Five months. There are people on message boards who say we cannot pay anything to.
Hmm.
And if they can demonstrate that that is not a majority of the Essex voters, that would make the next steps easier.
Mhm.
So could we think about scheduling a meeting, a meeting just to talk about schools, after the finance committee has had their discussion? I don't think we want to do that jointly. I think the finance committee wants to have its discussion, come up with its ideas, and then we review that.
Yep, I agree.
Maybe somebody could find a day when there isn't much else going on.
What would we be discussing at that meeting? And the reason I'm asking this is, since the school district functions independently,
Whether we consider that their budget is adequate to serve the needs of the school, we can't change it.
Okay.
But we can give our feedback as Essex gave their feedback last year.
thank you.
And we would be, at some point, when we get ready to do the warrant for the town meeting, we would need to make a recommendation or not anyway, so
But
just having multiple
The
discussions
board-
on it.
yes,
Yeah,
this is not something where we're going to get one meeting and get it all
exactly,
sorted.
yes, exactly.
Oh, we have report distribution next.
Yes,
Ah,
which is why Mr. Keel has joined us this evening.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Theo.
So Susan, if we get Eli and Sue Thorne here, we could have this whole bench.
Wouldn't that be nice? Go get 'em.
So, Tom has been instrumental in, getting the ATM packets distributed with the scouts' help. And so the fundamental question before you is, do we want to continue the delivery to every household? It's not required. Your bylaw doesn't require that to be the case for the annual town meeting. It calls for the reports to be available in 4 or 5 locations in town. Town hall, the fire station, police station, the school, I think the post office. Obviously you'd want them available at the meeting itself, which is when most people actually look at them. And so again, the question is, in today's digital world, where a lot of people are very used to looking up things online, is it necessary to go through the expense and the labor of delivering them to every household? Because it is an onerous undertaking. The scouts obviously have made it easier, but it still takes a lot of work and coordination, and printing 2,500 copies is expensive.
So question, that's not the only document that goes out in that little packet. There's also a school budget.
Well,
or
The
School
school have
report.
not set theirs out with us for about maybe 3 years now.
they've been mailing them the last few.
Okay, and then there's the warrant,
There's the finance committee report and warrant.
right?
So those are the 3 basic booklets, and
Right.
then
The book is the biggest by far.
Right.
So is the suggestion being made that whatever's being delivered, everything perhaps is electronic, or is it just the book because of its cost printing? I assume the other items, it's smaller and black and white.
right, but if we're not delivering the annual report, I don't think we would deliver the
Okay.
finance committee report either. We would again just make them available and then have obviously copies for everyone comes to the town meeting.
Because the book is a historic piece. The other pieces are forward-looking,
Yes,
which is something that's going to happen, and we want you to show up
yes.
with that thing. Okay.
Could the book be put online rather than as a set of separate reports? Because it ordinarily has pictures and, so could it be presented as a book-length document rather than, or would it be presented as,
It'd be just, it'd be the electronic version of what you're used to of the book.
okay,
So we do that now. We do put the booklet online.
okay.
Um,
Do you know how many
it's
people,
fine.
do you know how many people download it?
I don't have that number. Potentially public could look that up for us.
I'm sure we're going to find out.
Tom had a,
Yeah.
and I just,
Just gonna say, I know it wasn't the most important thing that was brought up at the meeting prior to the fall town meeting, but I did mention that if we push this ahead, as we did at the town meeting, then the delivery date was gonna be in the middle of the school vacation,
Right.
and trying to have youth available to do that delivery during school vacation is becoming more and more difficult. More and more people go. So,
Youths and parents, and the parents are.
yeah, the parents of the drivers, yeah, exactly. The scouts actually started to deliver these books. They used to be delivered by the DPW in their green DPW trucks. And then we had a big blizzard at the end of February 1969. And the town came to the scouts and said, would you be willing to deliver these to all the things? Because the DPW was still trying to widen the roads out. I can remember seeing kids coming back, being stuck in snowbanks. Up in here. Yeah, so it's been 50 some odd years now. I don't think. I mean, they can do some assembly if you decide you want to have some sitting there. Are some people who really want to get something to hold on to and something to look ahead of time. That's my opinion. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have any sitting at the town meeting, because people coming into the town meeting who haven't gotten one, but my basic thought is that most of the people who are very active thinking about coming to the town meeting and discussing things and voting and things like that will either go to the library, the town clerk's office, the memorial school, the police station, the fire station, and pick one up. The other thing that we could do, as I mentioned, and what I sent to Greg and to Ann, and I'm sure they shared with the board, is that if you feel that there are some people who probably aren't gonna get out to get one of these, that we'd be willing to set up some afternoon where we could get a list from town hall of who would like to get them delivered and deliver them to them.
mhm.
There might be like this partway system. I mean, I don't think you can
Yeah.
go from what we've done in the past to completely electronic and say, that's it. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think that it's a nice luxury to have them delivered, but I think it's not necessary any longer. I think that we have 5 repositories to pick them up, maybe the Council on Aging. I mean, mostly it's gonna be seniors for the most part that are gonna be looking for this.
And they
They're
can
the ones
pick it
that
up
vote.
at coffee,
I think we got, you know,
Some of
Sunday
them.
coffee.
okay, but I, you know, as you're saying, your workforce is being depleted. And the costs associated with it, I'm thinking a couple hundred, a couple different locations, and then however it works, and then
Mhm.
people who want it are gonna get it.
That's my
So-
belief.
So let me, if I may, I appreciate the fact that we probably can't continue to do things exactly the way we've been doing it, you know? And as Miss Electronic, I have to tell you, I love my paper, you know, town warrant and annual report. I think there's value in sending something to every home, even if it's just a postcard to say, hey, we're having the town meeting, go pick up your copy. It's either online at this URL or go pick up a copy. And the reason I think it's still valuable to send something to the house is you have people moving into town who've never lived in a town before. I remember the first time I lived in a town versus a city. And I get this thing because the Boy Scouts used to drop it off at my other town too. I'm like, what is this? You know? Oh, you're supposed to go to town meeting. So it's an education process for people. So I just think it's valuable to send something to the residents, even if it's not the big thick books.
Maybe the finance committee report, as the school is going to be
Yeah.
sending it out.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
we could do a bulk mailing of the finance committee
something
report.
small.
Or maybe that could be delivered by the scouts still, just a smaller packet.
Well, it's again, I think it's still a logistics issue.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how big the package is.
But
or how
sending
giant
this,
package is. It's
It's
just, it's a lot of houses.
Yeah. that's
sending a
lot of
small
work.
FinCom report is not gonna cost $15,000.
What's that gonna cost, the mail, FinCom?
It should not cost $15,000.
No.
Hope mail.
No, no.
But the difference between delivering the packet to each 2,250 homes and delivering the finance committee report to 2,250 homes is not much different in terms of
Oh, for the scouts.
labor.
No.
No, we're doing it
That
mailing.
would be sent out
Said
as
by
a bulk
mailing.
mailer. Then, and it would include a note saying, if you want the full town report, it's available here.
I heard what you heard too, Tom. So I thought there was still a push for hand delivering some of it. So, but I'm in agreement with Kathy that, yeah, let's send something out, bulk mailing, not asking the scouts to do it.
That would be less expensive. There'd certainly be noise. If they've got a bag that all of a sudden is several ounces lighter, everybody's used to seeing this bag with a pretty big booklet. We'll get some noise about that. If you change the delivery to the mail, there'll be people that won't necessarily react, but there won't be as many people.
Are you all even, are the scouts still doing, I mean, the collecting of the bags?
No, we're not doing, we haven't done the food.
Right,
The food.
The
drive.
food.
Well, that's- yeah.
Right.
I mean, the bag of the report is always in a little plastic bag.
well, the
Yeah.
plastic bag was for the food collection.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That
you're
was
right.
all
That's
part of,
correct.
and that's what I'm saying. They're not doing that anymore either. So,
But I think what I'm trying to say is we get the scouts out of this
Yeah.
altogether.
Yes.
Because it's school vacation week and logistically impossible.
I mean, we can put packets together, because, but it would just, we'd have to do it on
Well,
the week before school vacation,
I
if you
think,
wanted that.
but then we still have the problem of who drives around to all those houses.
No, those would be the packets that wound up, if you decided, those would be the packets that would wind up at.
town hall,
Town
fire.
hall,
Okay,
like the
They would
town
assemble,
meeting.
you would assemble them.
Yeah, we can assemble the
Okay.
packets.
so where there are places to pick it up, you would get the town report and the finance committee report.
And probably a flyer from the Friends of Manchester Trees and,
Okay,
Whatever else.
Fourth of
Fourth of
July
July.
committee and
okay,
things like that.
so
Mhm.
the Boy Scouts could put those together to be stationed at various places in town that are accessible. I'm not sure the fire department's particularly accessible at the moment, but maybe they could put a table out.
And they could put one in that little anti lobby
Yeah.
outside there. I mean, I personally, I think people who go to pick them up will go either to town hall or the library. Those are probably the two most common places they do it.
Yeah. And then maybe a couple Saturdays set up in front of the.
Nope.
No. Okay.
We can do that.
Fine.
I mean, the library is it's got good hours, it's
Yeah.
open at.
The only thing is that everything that we needed to put in the packet would have to be available by Monday, April 8th.
Hmm.
Because the next week is Patriots Day and this whole school vacation.
Well, I think you were trying to buy time.
Well, that buys 2 weeks from what it would have been if we had done it previously.
Yeah.
Actually, it buys 3 weeks. Because originally the town meeting would have been done on April 1st. And we'd do it 2 weeks before that, so that would be
Mhm.
sometime in mid-March. So
So-
you have about 3 weeks.
If we do a bulk mailing, we'll also have to consider the lead time for that. Is it, are we legally, we're not legally obligated to send anything to anybody's home by a certain time before? Okay,
Has to be made available.
okay.
Electronically
I think
is,
it's 7 days.
electronically is fine, and that is,
But also there'll be hard copies will be around.
yes.
Much of time.
Bulk mail is pretty ugly these days.
But if we're in bulk mail, we need to anticipate
Mhm.
what the time of bulk mail takes. Because it is certainly slower.
Much, yeah.
But that would solve the problem of people who don't know at
Right.
all.
Exactly,
They-
yes,
They
yeah,
would,
I
they would get
think,
something, and probably more effective than a postcard saying,
as long as they get something.
Yeah.
I think that would be
Those guys
helpful.
might be confusing.
Just feedback, there's been some, commentary on Facebook over the weekend because of the method in which the resident parking stickers were sent out. People got multiple mailings to the same home, like one home, you got one per car. There was a lot of consternation about that. So, bulk mail is different. It's a little bit less expensive, but I would just keep that in mind if there's a way when you ask your printer, if they can send one to the address,
Right.
not to the voter.
similarly, households that have different last names got 2 censuses.
Yeah, there's an assumption that the town is wasting money on the mailings, which may not be true because of the way printers estimate their jobs and but there's that perception.
I can summarize. At the moment, we are suggesting that we not have the Boy Scouts deliver to every house. That we have hard materials, including flyers from the various charities, and the finance committee report available in several places in town. And that we take the finance committee report and print enough of them to do a bulk mailing to every address. So that
Yeah.
everybody gets something reminding them that there is a meeting coming up and that it's important.
Then we should, I mean, if the school's gonna mail theirs, we ought to combine mailing.
It would be
Right,
nice,
it would be nice.
yes. I'm not sure that we have that much coordination, but we can try.
Well,
Yeah.
and the district is separate, so.
But if you use the same printer, they can use the same mailing list and,
They use Minuteman.
In,
We don't. We use Daily.
Does that meet your needs?
That's fine. I can communicate and talk to Greg, just, that we can just leave, sometime on April 8th to put packets together and things like that.
Mhm.
And then those would go out. I guess that would be Greg and probably Alan to determine how many packets you want to have made up.
Mhm.
I know Alan, just from working with him, he'll want to have a lot for town meeting because this person walks in at 8:10 to check in and there's not a packet there for him. Alan will be disappointed.
Yes. Okay. I don't think,
So do we need to decide on a run or how many of these reports are gonna be produced then tonight? You've run 2,500 in previous years. You don't need to write them, do that many, but I don't know what the magic number is.
In terms of the annual report, probably 1,000,
mhm.
Okay,
500 for the meeting itself.
Mhm.
And 500 and
scattered around the
scattered
distribution
around and
points.
distributed,
That's what I think. Yeah, I was gonna say,
something like that.
probably, if you use half and say 1,200, that would still save you
Right.
a lot of printing money,
Yeah.
which you could pay to the USPS to mail.
And we could also, in the FinCom, when that goes out, say, please look for the PDF online. And if you want to print it, otherwise bring your
Go to the
laptop.
library, go to the town.
Yeah.
That's all, this Mr. Keel, pleasure.
Yes.
I have my marching orders.
We all
Thank
do.
you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll try not to talk too long, Susan. Good to see you.
Alright.
Ready?
You're
We're
up.
ready.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So, this is a governance project update. I think I was here a few weeks ago when I shared sort of the construct of the meeting and what we were trying to do. And I think the feedback I've gotten is it was a successful meeting last Thursday night. We had about 25 or so there. We ran through a recap of sort of the things that we worked on since last June, and we had a checklist of everything. I think we've gotten the information that's sent to you in the packet of what we talked about. Did we do the brochure?
No, but I can go grab it.
So this, to me, this was my happy stuff.
Oh, the Slim Jim?
Yeah.
That was-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiffany did an excellent job with that.
You want to pass it around, that's great. I just like people to say.
I'll just pass.
It came out really, because it's a nice document, so easy, you are saying, you know.
Yeah, Tiffany did a really nice job laying it out.
Yeah,
We did a phenomenal job.
good little reference.
Yes, and I think the thought is that as people come on board and they get sworn in, this is part of their pathway, welcome to the service, and so it gives people something to use and cheers to. So that was a big piece of it. The most important part of the meeting, the lion's share of the meeting, was really about the project plan process that we launched. And it was a really great exercise because we gave everybody a blank sheet and then we gave them some prompts, and really nobody had exactly the right idea of what needed to happen. And that was actually a perfect outcome. Because what we wanted people to do is to say, you know, we haven't really thought about this before. It's not something that we've ever really done. And gee, maybe if it is a good idea, you know, how might we do that? So we kind of went through a little workshop and let people kind of see what they had, posted their responses. And then Steve Hart stood up and did a quick overview of the DIP2 project. And then Nate did a quick overview of Sweeney Park, and those were great as examples, because when people could see how they play out in the examples, it made more sense. And we then had a document that sort of had a very illustrated piece about how this could possibly work. So they got to see a complex project like the DIP2, where there'd be multiple streams of work, all kinds of things happening, into one that was a little less complicated, the Sweeney Park, but you could see how the interfaces would happen. So the hope is that each board and committee will forward this is all up on the website now underneath the governance project, thanks to our friends Stephanie Croft and Tiffany. So we're hoping that people will adopt it and look at it, use it. I know Ron sent one to the planning board already. I've offered to be more than happy to stop into a meeting or talk to people as they begin the planning process, because I think that there's some real value in using this as a tool. Made it abundantly clear, it is not a mandatory piece, but it is a good thing for people to use as, you know, sort of a way to organize. And if we could get, the goal of it is to provide some consistent, concise ways to communicate the projects between all of the committees. One example that came up during the meeting, which was great, was that Bill said, you know, we should go at the beginning of every project, you should look at the board and committee list and say, who do we need to engage on this? Who is a stakeholder? Because so often these projects get kicked off and somebody gets forgotten and, you know, you end up retreading the wheel. So if you spend the time planning up front, It doesn't mean things will go smoothly all the time, God knows, but, you know, at least you've got a way and a structure to do that. So I think it was a very positive meeting. We got some good feedback from the group, and one of the things that we did at the appendix was have the groupings of all the different boards and committees. And one thought is maybe run a little bit of a short workshop for those in the spring, where you can bring them together in a short time and do that. But I think the real value of what people love the most is getting together. Sitting with other board and committee members, having good conversations, understanding kind of what's going on, and getting that face time. So I think having the meetings maybe 3 times a year or something like that, however pace we want to do it. But I think there's a value of carrying it forward to do the Jamaican board committee.
It's also nice, just so that it keeps that cohesiveness.
I think the other thing too is, we talked a little about the responsibilities of liaisons, right? So we're all liaisons to different committees, and part of our responsibility then is also, if we know one of our committees is starting a project, we can remind them, hey, you know, did you go through the committee list? Who else did you need to talk to? So any liaison really is a reinforcing mechanism to try and get people to remember there are other committees doing similar things.
And I think a really great outcome would be if the select board, when a project does come forward, you ask the question, have you looked at the project? Have you put it into a plan? Is there where you want to do this? Just to continue to reinforce it, because the adoption of it is going to be something that will take over time. But I think there's such value, because at the end of the day, we heard this when we did the surveys, people want to interact with each other. They want to know what's going on, so they're not doing all their work in silos. And if we can encourage that through having good information. The other piece is Tiffany and the team are working now to redo the website. There could be some opportunities for the way that these things can get played through as the website gets updated as well. So
Yeah, I think that's a real big opportunity, Greg. I don't know what Tiffany's timeline is. But it's really important to get certain pieces of feedback before the new website gets etched in stone, the design, right? So, you know, do you have any idea what the timeline is? Because we talked about doing a lot of different things to make sure that the usability of the site is tested before things get too far down the line.
Yeah, it's just getting underway now. It's a multi-month process.
Is it following?
Do they
the
have a
the
project
program-
plan?
The project plan?
Yeah, oh,
No.
Tiffany's listening in, but I don't have that in front of me.
I think that's a good suggestion though.
I-
because- Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yes, we've kicked off our meeting with Civics Plus. And I do have an outline and project timeline from them. We just kicked it off last week. We were in a waiting queue for our turn, so to speak. And the timeline is to launch around June, July, depending on our deliverables and how things go on our end and theirs. So right now we're sort of in the information gathering point, pictures, and we have to give them certain feedback, and we have our homework assigned to us, and then we'll meet with them again in March. And it will sort of be ongoing as we churn through the process. But she gave us a good overview picture of how sort of with our account, what we're entitled to and what this redesign process will look like. It's really not building from the ground up. It's more of a refresh and overlaying updates and some enhancements, some changes over what's already existing, which is why I'm going through the exercise of cleaning up the back end of our website and meeting with each department head and deleting old material, and because that is something that Civics Plus won't be doing through this process. So the more tidy on our end, that we have the information, it'll enhance the end result. So hopefully that's a little bit of an update. We're just at the beginning process. I can get you more information. That's just off the top of my head right now.
So I think it would be helpful, Tiffany, maybe Susan, if we got another group meeting together to kind of review what it is you're going to be doing, Tiffany, so that we can make sure to, Ann's point,
Mhm.
this is the project, right?
Yeah.
We should be leveraging
The
this
work you-
process, right, to make sure the right input is collected in order to give it to Civics Plus.
Yeah, and we did discuss that at our meeting. We talked about different ideas that we had, their capabilities with AI and user testing and heat mapping. And, that isn't something that they typically do in these refreshes that are more cyclical every 3 to 4 years. But it's certainly something that we could do on our own, but it's not something that they typically see different towns engage in as far as feedback during the process of this redesign. So I think most towns sort of gather, over the past 4 years, we've gathered certain feedback from the community internally too, with different departments and what their needs are and how their needs are changing for how they want to distribute their information on the website. So different factors at play. We definitely want the community's feedback. I feel like we've received some over the 4 years. That's been helpful, that we've sort of noted. And I don't know. Yeah, that's sort of what I have right now.
I understand that, but we have in front of us a project plan with stages, and it's not just the community that needs to be able to give you feedback, but figure out who the stakeholders are, who the decision makers are. Yeah.
Yep. Well, we have an internal team, and it's made up of represents different departments that have different department heads will be involved in reviewing, as far as, we know the most visited, we have analytics on it on what the most visited web pages are, the most downloaded web pages. We have, yeah.
It sounds as if it's your project.
Yeah, it's not my project. I mean, I'm facilitating it. I'm part of a team working on it that's been assembled internally, which is how it worked the last time we did this 4 years ago.
So Tiffany, I'll just offer the following perspective as someone who used to do this for a living. Okay. The department heads will have the best intentions of making the website easy for they'll want to make it easy for them to publish valuable information for the community. However, part of that website has to be for the community to easily access information, and we won't get the best possible outcome unless we engage the community in kind of testing out what we're thinking. So it's these websites that are kind of lots of different things to lots of different people are the most difficult ones to design well. So
Right.
I just encourage us to
Yeah.
take this offline and, talk about how to best make sure we get the different feedback from different perspectives and in the most efficient way.
We sort of gone down a rat hole at this point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear from John what your impression was of the meeting on the 25th.
Well, Susan was exactly right. When you started out and you had these 5 or 6 tables and you pass out this project plan process and you say, put it together. Everybody goes down their own rat hole, so to speak, and decides, well, I worked on this project here and this is what I did. And everybody starts being project specific, which was not the objective. It was to look at it from a higher level and see what the story was. I thought everybody converged on that, but how many minutes did you give us? 20? All right, wherever you drew the line, it didn't make any difference if you draw it at 30 or 40. Everybody had together to understand what's going on, and the light goes on after everybody sees everybody else's stuff. I don't think the light goes on when you got your little team and you say, this is what I put together. It doesn't, because different people, different tables came to different conclusions. And a lot of it was driven by, well, who's the dominant person at the table and what's their project, and it kind of gets driven that way. But when they see everything and put it together, then it kind of crystallized. And that is a sheet that every team, when it's assembled or something, or at least a preliminary team, because you don't know who's going to be involved in the end, should have. And that's the first meeting and the first, starting point for it. So I thought it was a good exercise, but to your point, the big value is who are you and what department are you in or what committee? And I kind of know what you do, et cetera. It's very,
So,
very educational.
you know what the best part was, when at the end, and I'm not sure if you were there. right
Not at the end, I was
Yeah, when
not.
we were handing out the actual piece that had the detail on it. Before we handed that out, somebody raised their hand and said, gee, it'd be really great if we had one of these all filled out with all the steps and the information in it. And it was like the perfect setup, because that's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
what
what
we
you
were
wanna
the
be.
next step. So, yes, I think that was good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really just a common language, so that when all the committees are working with each other, they're speaking in a common language and hopefully understanding where they are in the process.
So,
Thank you very much for that.
you're very welcome. And like I said, I'm totally available. We can connect on next steps. Kathy, if you talk.
I do think there's one next step we should talk about now, and that is, because it was something we didn't talk about during the consent agenda. But we have an open action to kind of review the committees that we think may no longer need to exist or could be absorbed, merged, or reinstituted as advisory to staff members. We have those recommendations. I know, Greg, you want to take a look at them. We've even had some committee chairs come forward and say, we really don't need this committee to exist right now. So I do think we need to have that discussion. And I know, it's kind of related to the action here on the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. If we could, pick a meeting to have that discussion, I think we just need to get that done.
After you talk to Greg.
We kind of given him some information, and I'm not quite sure, Greg, if you want to talk offline about it first before we bring it to the board, but I just think we've got to, there's nothing else that the project team is working on in that area. We just need to have a conversation. So if you want to have a conversation first and then bring it to the board, whatever it is, we just have the conversation at the board, whatever makes sense, but we've got to get that done.
So you'd like to have that when before we talk about diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, so the reason that has been kind of held up is we wanted to discuss, okay, what is our process for setting up a new committee, but also which committees have served their purpose and can stop existing. So the generic conversation is what I'd like to have first. And in addition to those specific committees where we do think they can take a different form.
So that goes on an action.
Yeah, I mean, we have something for the March meeting, but I just want to make sure Greg is ready to have that conversation. We have a date of, March 4th, we can do it. Then if that's a meeting date, if you want to do it before, or I just think we need to have it.
Maybe assemble those.
Okay.
That stuff.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I was
Thank you,
to do it. And
Thanks, Susan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Susan. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this policy.
Read it, thank you.
And it's longer and longer as we add more and more conditions.
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah. I
I
think
thought it did too.
we took some stuff out.
I tried, but
Level 5 with management.
no. Motion to approve the first reading.
I move to advance the appointment policy to the second reading.
Is it good?
Becky,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anne said yes.
John says yes.
Okay. Liaison updates.
I think I'll just keep it to the wayfinding task force meeting. And it was quite a good turnout for that. And Marlene Dolan is chair. We have Mark Favorman from MDI, who's the wayfinding organization. And we discussed objectives that the task force has been given and went over the first meeting, just talking about community branding, what it is, what it accomplishes, and just tried to help all the the people on the committee understand that. So Mark Favorman, quite a presentation. I think it was 220 slides.
Well,
It was, well, his point was, he was trying to show everything from very simple to very large scale and how everything can, you don't apply everything to one place. Anyway, so our next meeting is going to be, I wrote this down. March 5th. We've not specified a time yet, but the next meeting is going to be case studies from other communities.
Has the committee considered following the project plan that the governance group has developed?
Well, now that we have it, suppose we can. I can mention that to Marlene. And that's,
Okay, great. Thank you for sitting through 230 slides.
that's
kind of ironic, it's wayfinding.
that.
Can't get lost.
Actually, it was really pretty interesting, I thought.
Brian,
Parks and Rec, nothing really new.
did they get a report from the,
Yeah, I didn't tell him much. It actually seems like it's a lot of everything they knew already. They're still waiting to find out if USA Pickleball will use Manchester as a case study. The costs are more than what it budgeted at this point. Considering the fact that that $20,000 that was allotted to a town meeting, I think we're losing, off the top of my head, figure out how much money, almost half of that just to extend the fence, to raise the fence up.
Mm.
Okay, and then, of course, now we're just waiting for Greg to give us the credit card, and Cheryl and I going to Florida. to
Check out some other examples.
Check out someone, at this point, I think it's just gonna be a thorn in our side for a long time.
has the Parks and Rec committee considered setting up a lock?
It was
Um,
discussed. I don't think it hasn't gone past the discussion, the initial discussion.
For the record, I am advocating that they restrict the courts to town residents, charge the residents something reasonable for a fob and that will at least cut down on the number of people
Mhm.
in there and bring in a little bit of revenue.
Okay, that was brought up, and I will talk to Cheryl about putting that on
Okay.
this month's agenda as well.
I think also gotta do the fob at the library, you know, how they, depending on the hours.
Okay, right, so you rent a fob or check out a fob, but
That's a great idea.
that,
No, the only problem with that is that, it's the hours that the library,
yeah,
the town
But-
hall are open.
I think it's something, it's certainly worth,
Yeah.
my initial reaction, the initial feeling I got from when I first brought this up after you and I talked about this 2 months ago. It was, wasn't well received. Okay. But it's certainly worth revisiting it.
What was the feedback?
It's just that, you know, there's no other facility, no other town facility that limits those courts or, you know. But then again, this is the only one around. So it's a unique situation. And I think that it's like anything else, it's uncharted territory. And it just, every day, there's more and more information coming out. Okay. And the reports are saying it's noisy. Okay,
and annoying too.
and annoying.
They're all the same.
Pardon?
They're all the same, every report you
Every
get,
report's the same. There's no.
the articles in
you
the
know,
media.
So the interesting, that, you know, depending on if you did go with a fob approach or something electronic, some electronic entry, you would know who's there.
Mm-hmm,
And if there was a particular complaint at a particular time,
right.
you would know who's there. So that
It's
Mhm.
fair,
might
they'll always
provide
be-
some advantage.
but I think that as long as it's being used, it's gonna be complaints. Doesn't matter who's using it.
Understand, but
Uh,
some of it's anecdotal that now, you know, anything you can do electronically will provide you with actual data and evidence.
So it's,
as
again, it's
opposed to
something that
anecdotes.
will, you know, I'll have to bring back to them. And then the other thing we discussed was naming of Pine Street Field. So that's still,
Pine Street feels not good enough.
well, there's an opportunity.
It is an opportunity.
All right, so that was, kicking that around, is what we're gonna, what they wanted, it's not me, they wanted. And they're getting ready for 4th of July already, so I crank that up. And, basketball season's winding down. Next weekend is, the end of the season championship weekend, and I think it was a successful, you know, Heather does a great job with that. And the after-school program is thriving, so I guess Parks and Rec is doing their thing.
Would they like a run a lunch service?
Well, potential. They got the infrastructure.
Speaking of, under the liaison report, I think I'll take advantage of that to discuss the launch service. Peter Twining and I took the action to help buy on with a business plan for that. So we have done some work on that, met with Greg, have a couple of pages of assumptions, working through that. Peter's working on some of the financials. I think he's away on vacation. When he gets back, then we'll have another meeting with Greg and buyout. So that's actively in process. One of the things we kind of talked about though is doing a let's walk before we run approach. We talked a lot about both a harbor launch service and harbor tours. So we're trying to concentrate on the launch. You know, can we make
You and
that
Peter?
successful? Yeah. Yeah, can we make that, and that's what we discussed with Greg, you know, can we make that successful before we start getting too confused with too many different services? So, like I said, I think we'll be ready to come back. I mean, you know, early March.
I think that, the decision has to be made for Tom Baker's purpose.
Yeah, and we'll be talking with him too. And I didn't,
Tom isn't gonna get his,
he wouldn't get his money until after town meeting anyway, but he wants some sort of commitment, is my understanding. We
I'm
would bring
not
it
sure
to town, that we would bring it to
that we
town
would bring
meeting.
it to town.
That was my understanding. So, and I think we would be ready to, I think we need to discuss it at the select board as we're discussing all the other budgetary items. And then, we would be able to let Tom know one way or another, are we bringing it to town meeting or not? I missed the FinCom meeting on, DPW on Wednesday. But again, I don't know if there's anything.
It's good, in-depth discussion. Most of the budgets were approved as presented. A little bit more discussion is needed concerning, with all the capital investments that are on the horizon, how we best manage the OPM, the owner's project manager. So you're required by state law to have an OPM for any project that's over 1.5 million in the horizontal project.
That dollar amount?
Sorry, vertical project.
That dollar amount, is that for the expected total cost or just for, like, let's say you're doing a design and it's less than $1 million. Do you still need an OPM for that design project or?
No, just for the actual construction. And so Chuck and me would be strongly in favor of bringing that in-house. And so that needs further discussion. So.
When you say bringing in-house, in other words, the management of that?
Basically hire an in-house OPM rather than contract.
Yes, that's,
Contracting
yes.
that out.
But it would be a temporary hire.
Yeah,
not
temporary.
Full-time, but term limited.
Mhm.
So Finance Security asked us to just do a side-by-side comparison of that and have a little bit of discussion next time around.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna save it.
The school committee meets tomorrow to decide on their budget. They are still trying to meet the principal's desires and respond to Essex's financial constraints. I hope that they find a middle ground tomorrow. We've talked about that list of things that Greg mentioned. But as a package, if we could get the three entities to agree that whole package, each entity has to give up something. And each gets something. Or two things. But trying to deal with those subjects independently, you just run into strong resistance from whoever is going to have to give up on that particular one. It's an interesting process. And the MBTA zoning task force, the consultant is doing a really good job of getting people to focus on actually how many units you could get in this area. And it at the moment, we seem to be settling in on one area, starting at Elm Street, 2 houses in from Central, going out Elm Street and Powder House Lane, and then following the curve of Powder House Hill over to Pine Street, and then a little bit up Pine Street, but not as far as Newport Park, because Newport Park is deed restricted to be senior housing and doesn't fit the model. Then down both sides of Pine Street to 2 houses in from Central Street on the east side, and then down to the gas station there on Pine Street. So it still needs to be refined a bit, but it avoids the historic district, by and large. It's mostly areas with small lots. And the advantage of a small lot is if you buy it, you can't put up a big building. So that would, I think that Emily Innes is modeling at 2.5 stories. And saying we can get what we need inside the circle there. And then there are the two outside the circle possibilities that we're looking at. One of which is the doctor's building off of Pine Street. And
Off of Pine or School?
school, sorry, yeah,
Okay.
right, school. And possibly including the back.
Yeah.
And those areas would be very dense. The other is that Denny Hall has been talking with Gordon College. And if Gordon College could transfer its land to a non-educational something or other, it might be possible to put together a deal where there would be 20 acres of fairly dense townhouses, and the rest of the land would go into conservation.
Access by Pine Street?
Access from Pine Street, yes. And I haven't done it, but Sarah Melish and Steve Gang and some other people have walked and think that is a plausible thing. It's just a question of getting, there are lots of moving pieces to get that one working. Because at the moment, it belongs to an educational institution, and that means it's excluded, and we can't build on some, we can't rezone educational land owned by an educational institution. So that's I don't. The committee is really focusing in on those areas. We looked at some others out Summer Street. There's the most recent former cricket building would be a lovely target, but it's too small. You can't do spot zoning. It has to be at least 5 acres. And the rest of that street just isn't really conducive to what we're trying to do.
Did they look at the 2 lots out Summer Street, just beyond the train overpass? It's, you know, those 2 lots that equal a little over 6 acres.
That's outside the circle.
Okay,
Circle goes to about Lincoln, I think.
The circle goes to about Lincoln. And the goal is that the outside the circle wants to be 20 acres, because part of the
okay.
whole formula is that you have to have one section that's 20 acres.
Oh, just a moment.
yep. Thank you.
That's what.
Okay.
Very hard to follow those meetings online because we all talk over each other.
Misery
then-
Island's too far away.
But
Misery Island's too far away.
House Island is even a little far. And Misery Island sadly belongs to
That's
Beverly.
Sorry. You can find it, we could see.
And those are the 2 things that I'm following.
Okay. I've got a couple of things. For DPW, the fires of the moment are the library leaks, and they are getting some quotes in. It's really all around the chimney. And of course, once the water gets in, it starts walking. So that's why they've got problems in lots of different places. And apparently it's been going on for quite some time. But they hope to be able to seal that off fairly soon. And the Stinky Beach Wall is having problems from the past couple of storms, even though it has recently been redone. They're trying to put some rocks, I think, in front of that to prevent, to at least break down the waves that are coming in and hitting that wall at at king tides. And not in the fire department, but with regard to what's going on for their initiative on a new on their new site that they're exploring up on, where Black Earth used to be. They're gonna take a look at geothermal, which is, drilling a really deep hole and seeing if that might make some sense for them. I thought I was curious. Pardon me?
Got a private well.
Board of Health will try to get a hold of that somehow.
I don't think they do closed loop, but maybe they
No.
do.
I don't,
Yeah,
it's,
they're close.
they got,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think the Board of Health is involved in closed loop.
no, that's correct, because this will be a, close, but they got it down like, I don't know, 1,000 feet or something, but. I mean, they're not going down to lava. But I guess it's kind of warm down there in the heat sink with rocks. So I was curious about that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. The other area is the Historic District Commission had a meeting late last month. There's a consultant that's working with the commission. His name is John Clemens. And he's doing a survey plan of all the historic houses in town, or at least those that currently are listed on the local historic district or the National Register. And he will expand beyond that, but the purpose of this survey is to set up a roadmap for an application for grants to survey the town in a greater sense, and some of these properties that have already been looked at, to provide more information so it can provide the town an ability or knowledge of what houses, sites and structures should be preserved. And he's got about, I'd say 200 to 250 properties that are listed, and he's divided it up into about 7 neighborhoods. Pretty interesting. And all of these houses generally are dating from 1750. They're all older houses. And certainly I think it's the lion's share of the historical houses. But there are certainly more that are beyond that. So this is just a preliminary list. And his report isn't due until the 1st of June or so. So he's continuing to push along, but it's a good guide as to where things are going, you know, where the houses are and what's significant here. And
Will that be put online?
yes, I think when the survey is complete, I have the preliminary survey, which is, I don't know how many pages. It looks like, I don't know, probably 15 or 20. So he's got more work that he's got to do in his effort. But it'll be used as background for the grants. And then we'll have a real good profile for the town for all of that. So that'll be going on for the next several months. And I think that's, yeah, those 2 issues are good.
Finish this report, I think.
Yes, can be very brief. Just sort of an FYI, we rarely see this, but Granley Pond is more than maxed out in terms of what it can hold, and water is spilling over the spillways, which is not a typical scene. In December, it's like 7 inches of rain in December.
Where does that spill?
Sort of towards Round Pond.
Oh, okay, all right, over on that side.
Yep. So also with all the high water and the high water table in the ground, it means a lot of extra water getting into the sewer system, which is not something we want. So even though we made really good progress on infiltration inflow, when there's this much water, you see a lot of it at the sewer plant. So more work to be done there. Mentioned the ATM, April 24th, and then also the deadline for the petition articles, which is February 22nd. And then I just highlighted the new select board handbook is available online and gave you that link. So I encourage you to take a look, and when you can't sleep, have somebody read it.
Is that something we could, I know that it's online, but provide it as a printout to new select board members when they, I mean, it's.
Yeah, we have in the past.
Right,
So
as I've had, yeah.
yes. So those are my quick updates.
Okay. In that case, who is it who's supposed to go into, me, okay. I move that the select board enter into executive session for chapter 30A, section 21A6 to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body and to not return to open session. And I do declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position.
Second,
Becky,
yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy, Anne says yes.
John, yes.
Okay, we can turn off and we stand up.
5 minutes?
5